opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Neptune abandoned safety. Neptune abandoned standards, and Neptune abandoned Lee Allen. This case is clear. There are rules put in place, standards, such as the buddy system and different diver certifications, designed to keep divers safe from the dangers involved with scuba diving, and how it was Neptune, whose CEO helped create such standards, abandoned each and every one of them on July 7th, and that is why we're here today. We're here today, members of the jury, because Neptune paired a dive master with Lee Allen, knowing that his attention would not be on Lee the entire time. We're here because during the dive, Lee was sent by himself in the ship in complete darkness. And the reason we have Miss Andy Allen, a widow, here today, because her husband died at 170 feet below the ocean surface. Members of the jury, we have the burden of proof. That means that we had to show you that it is Neptune who is liable for the death of Lee Allen. And to do this, we look to the law, the Midland Civil Code. And it states that we have to prove to you the 4 elements of civil recklessness. And the law only requires that we prove this merely by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning that it is more likely than not 50% plus a feather's weight. First, we had to show you that Neptune owed Lee Allen a duty of care. Second, that Neptune breached that duty of care by acting with a reckless disregard for Lee Allen's safety. Third, that breach of duty was both the direct and proximate cause of Lee Allen's death. Direct meaning, but for Neptune's actions, Lee Allen would still be here with us today. Proximate meaning that it was foreseeable that the choices made by Neptune would have caused Lee Allen any type of harm. And lastly, we had to show you that Lee Allen did in fact suffer harm. Now, members of the jury, the defense is not going to come before you and deny that Lee Allen suffered harm. The defense will not come before you and tell you that they did not owe Lee Allen a duty of care. Before today's trial, they admit to this. We know that Lee Allen paid Neptune to go on a diving expedition, not with the intent of getting hurt or getting harmed, but to explore a shipwreck in the Atlantic Ocean. And how after this expedition, him and his wife will go home and settle down and start a family. Now, at the beginning of today's trial, my co-counsel, Mr. Adam Brenders, told you to keep 2 questions in mind throughout today's trial. First, what did Neptune know on July 7th? And second, what did Neptune choose to do? First, what did they know? Neptune knew the safety standards of the scuba diving industry. They knew that Lee Allen was an inexperienced diver, knew that she didn't meet the requirements to safely dive to the Hepburn, knew that on July 7th, she didn't have all her equipment. That's what we heard from Carrie Connor today. We also heard how one of the Neptune's employees saw a storm clouds coming in. But what did Neptune choose to do, members of the jury? We heard how Neptune abandoned safety when they allowed Reggie Rogers to be Lee Allen's dive buddy. How they allowed Lee Allen to dive without his proper equipment during a storm. They abandoned standards when they dove 40 feet past the recreational limit of 130 feet, members of the jury. We heard how they abandoned Lee Allen 170 feet below the surface when they told Lee Allen to just go ahead and pointed in the direction of the ship to go catch up with the group. We're which, by the way, is a whole minute away, and you can't see them. Members of the jury, Neptune made a conscious disregard of a known risk. Members of the jury, that is the definition of recklessness. When you know that something can happen to harm to another, and you do nothing about it. We have proven that Neptune recklessly disregarded Lee Allen's safety. Now, that breach of duty was a direct and proximate cause of Lee Allen's death. Now, members of the jury, direct. But for Neptune's actions, would Lee Allen still be here today? Members of the jury, if Neptune, whose CEO helped establish the standards listed out in Scuba Diving 101 that we heard today from Ms. Bailey Johnson, if they had adhered to all of this, Lee Allen would still be here today. Proximate cause. Is it foreseeable that Lee Allen would suffer harm? Members of the jury, recall testimony of Annie Allen. She said that her husband was experiencing trouble at 120 feet. We heard from the defense witnesses how they thought for a minute that Lee Allen should not have dove to the Hepburn in the first place, based on his performance at 120 feet. Members of the jury, it's undoubtable that if you're going to experience pain at 120 feet, that you're going to definitely experience much more pain diving deeper to 170 feet. We have proven this today, members of the jury. Neptune abandoned safety when they chose to pair Reggie Rogers with Lee Allen, knowing that Reggie Rogers would not pay attention to Lee Allen the entire dive. Neptune abandoned standards when they dove past recreational limits to 170 feet without an official dive master during a storm, members of the jury. And Neptune abandoned Lee Allen by himself in the darkness, still breathing. Members of the jury, find Neptune liable for the death of Lee Allen.